Evening, everyone. How you doing? It's Evermore Podcast. It's Monday night. You've got me and Mark here, and we're back asking the usual question we ask every Monday night, Mark. What's going on? Mark, what's going on with you, mate?
Well, watching rain. What's this wet stuff outside? It's strange. It's gone from heat wave to well, not quite monsoon, but it feels like it outside compared to the last few days. Random weather talk from Mark.
Thunderstorms are coming, and Darwin Núñez is heading for a little lengthy spell on the sidelines, mate. After that,
heading being the pun intended.
We've got Ash in the comments today. Bono Estente, lads. Yes, I'm not sure what Darwin Núñez said, mate, but I don't think it was Bono Estente. Ash, good to see you in the comments, buddy. We're live tonight, guys, so make sure you smash in the comments. We love it when you're in the comments. It really helps the channel flow. Helps me and Mark get through the show and bounce off you guys. A little bit of housekeeping before we get stuck in everything we've got to talk about tonight. If you haven't already, please click that like and subscribe button. We'd love you to come and join us. We are, I think, about 1630 something subscribers, I think, at the minute. So we're closing on 1700. Really, really want to get there as soon as possible. So smash the button, hit the bell, and you'll never miss any of the videos. So let's get stuck in then, Mark. We've got a few things to cover. We're not going to get into too much detail about the game. That's going to be for Evermore on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Tune in for that, guys. Mark's got some unbelievable stats and slides as well. It's pointing out just some of the things we possibly could have done better at the weekend. So make sure you tune in for that. But let's get stuck into what we're going to talk about tonight, Mark. And there was a nice bit of news, I suppose, in the game. Shame for Matty Targett with his dead leg, or his D leg, as we call it in our neck of the woods. But it did give us a chance to see the Botman, mate. The Botman began. How did you feel he did?
I thought he was excellent. I really did. I thought he was almost pretty much standout of the defenders. His passing was excellent. He didn't make a whole many tackles, but he didn't need to. I just thought he was very, very good. He's very quick to get that ball forward. We said this when we looked at him previously. His progressive passes are always very good. He's always looking to move that ball straight forward. And if you can play those quick balls out of defence, sort of straight into the centre of midfield, that's exactly what you need him to do. And he's just brilliant at it. And I just thought he had a solid debut under some pressure, certainly in that second half.
Absolutely. And good evening to all the guys in the comments as well. Great to have you on board, guys. Yeah, you're right, mate. I think the biggest compliment I could probably give the Botman was that it didn't look like his debut. It looked like he played there for years, to be fair. Yeah, he's just so cool and calm. He's got that Nemanja Vidic type vibe, isn't he, where he just kind of walks on the pitch, doesn't look phased. You know, I actually think he's going to start against City, and I think him against Haaland is mouth-watering, to be fair. We'll get stuck in that a bit more on Wednesday, but I just think he just looks a proper player, proper defender. He's just a real cut above, like a real class act player. It was a bit of a scruffy game. You know, we're not going to get too much into it, as I said, but it was a bit of a scruffy game. I think both teams cancelled each other out. I don't think the weather helped, because it was obviously very hot and humid, and when you got two teams that play with energy and pressing like those two sides do, I just think they burnt each other out. Brighton were definitely the better of the side, and if they could actually finish, we probably would have went back to the northeast with no points. But you know, it's a decent point. But I think you're right, mate. Botman was definitely the standout. I thought Big Dan Burn did all right as well. Mark getting shoved out to left back didn't have to do a great deal, really, mate. But he looked all right there, didn't he? Apart from the fact he's the world's largest left back.
You did the problem that and I will get onto this. That there's one note we'll look at on Wednesday is just the lack of attack, from it. And he did get up the line. I'm not going to knock him for that, but it's just awareness of being up the line. I think Matty Targett gives you a much better option at that point, and it just takes away a little bit of the game. And I think you see the best of ASM with Targett behind him, and I just think it wasn't quite as on point. And even though ASM has he's not quite been himself over the last two games and sort of games towards the end of last season, you do see the best of him with Targett behind him. So we're behind him. So Burn came in and did well, as you'd expect from him. You know, his passing was very good again. I think his passing rate was 78%. He won, I think, the most of his duels, as you'd expect, which is something going back to Botman as well. I don't think Botman lost a duel. I think he
100%. I think it was 3 out of 3 or something, 4 out of 4 or something. Yeah.
3 of 3 in the air, 1 of 1 on the ground, 85% passing. I think you can't ask for a better debut than that. But Burn Byrne filled in very well at left back. I think that was the bonus with him is we've seen at Brighton that he can play in that position. He does sometimes lack in going forward, but he puts himself up and down that line, which is exactly what he did. If you look at his heat map, he is up and down that left-hand side. So he does work very, very hard, but I think you just lose a little bit from him, but a solid game all the same.
Absolutely. Mark said he can't wait to see the Botman against City, see how good he really is. Me neither, Mark. That's going to be a hell of a juicy battle between him and Haaland. Christ, if he has Haaland in his pocket, we'll probably be building a statue next to Bobby already from, I think, outside, mate. Jordy, tune for life in the comments. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you. No Nunes when we play Liverpool, so that's a plus, absolutely, mate. But Liverpool are a bit shit at the minute, so I fancy our chances, mate, to be honest with you. Didn't realise Fraser was not in the squad. He deserves a start when he's fit. It's interesting, but we're going to get stuck into the squad depth in a little bit, Stu. But yeah, I suppose just going back to the defence, really, Mark, that I think people were liking in Botman's introduction. I think Eddie Howe even touched upon it. He was going to slowly drip feed him in a bit like he did with Bruno. But remember when Bruno had his almost sliding door moment game, was that game against Southampton where he just stood out above everybody else. It was the back heel goal. You know, it was that kind of moment where everyone said, right, we've been screaming for this guy. We've seen little flashes. And wow, look, he started. He has to stay in the team. I almost think, as much of a scruffy game as that was, I almost think Botman's just composure and quality at the back, as you say, Mark, just totally unshaken, unfazed, you know, in that game. I almost think Eddie Howe and Jason Tindall are watching that going, we can't drop him against City. So the question I've got, I suppose, we'll probably cover it on Wednesday too, but fuck, I'm going to ask it now. If Matty Targett's leg is alive again from being dead against City, which it should be, unless he's been kicked really hard, does Targett go straight back in the side at left back and Botman staying with Shaw? Yeah, I'm with you, mate.
I think it's harsh on Byrne because I think Byrne's been excellent alongside Shaw, but I think Botman was so good, and there are points, and I think overall those four at the back were exceptional at the weekend. I think bar Pope, they were the standouts. Everybody further forward wasn't quite so good, even though players did have good moments. But you look at that back four and think that's solid. I mean, it's been so long since you've been able to say that about a Newcastle. It looks settled. It looks like they've played together a long time. There's not many mistakes in the four of them. But I think when you want a genuine left back against City, you want to have that stability there. And it's harsh on Byrne, but I think just how good Botman was, I think he's the one that steps out when Target comes back in and plays in that role, unless he does something a little bit different and plays with five and plays with wing backs. I'm not sure he will, but that would be the option as well, to try and fill those sort of gaps in and around that defence. Maybe he's just stand Shaw a little bit further forward of the other two, but I'm not sure he will. It would be, given the way that they've played and the stability that's there, I think it would be an odd choice at this time.
Yeah, it would be a little bit strange. I mean, Jimmy's in the comments there saying defensively we were mint. You're right there, Jimmy. The lack of imagination and chances has been for a number of years. Fucking lifting. Yeah, I must admit, we'll get stuck in that in a minute in terms of the squad depth. Two Leroy's in the comments. Been a tough week for you, Leroy, on the old fantasy football, mate. We didn't want to meg you too much, but he's had a shocker on the old fantasy football. But good to see the comments, mate. All right, Chris and Mark. Match of the day didn't do us justice this week. We had 45% possession. Yeah, you're right. Do you know, it really pisses me off about match of the day. I don't know about you, Mark, with this, where anytime there's a 0-0 game, despite how good the football is, unless it's one of the top four, City, Liverpool or something like that, they always put it on last and they always show you like the tiniest slither of the highlights of the game. Unless you actually watch that game, you'd have thought, well, that was a bit shy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I guess it's difficult. It's always going to be difficult. You're going to want to see the goals, I guess, is the majority of the fans are going to tune in and watch it all. But it was a good game. It wasn't your standard 0-0. When you look at the stats overall, and we talk about 45% overall, Newcastle had 52% in the first half, so they had the bulk of possession there, or only just. It was the second half that Brighton really made the game their own and really should have taken their chances, but it was pretty even up until that point. But you just, you want a little bit more, but I can never be too harsh on them, because you just think, well, you've only got so much to fill, and you've got to kind of look what's going to be the biggest draw of people watching, and it's almost a dying program these days, isn't it? Because everybody's already seen the highlights, and it's such a shame because it's such a mainstay of English football that you want it to be great, but it is frustrating when you want to watch extended highlights of something if you haven't been able to watch the game, and you just get, like he says, it did make it look like Newcastle had about 5% possession because every attack pretty much was Brighton's.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Match of Day is getting so shit they're even making Alan Shearer sing, which I am not a fan of. As we said in the group chat, I was called a grumpy old bastard for that. But one time, yes, funny. Yeah, one time, yes, funny. Second time, come on, fucking turn it in. It's not the X Factor, for fuck's sake. Stop ruining our record goal scorer and making them like a performing monkey. Gabriel again, your shit crack and your fucking sinister goatee. Anyway, we'll move away from Match of the Day. But yeah, I just think it's yeah, you're right. It'll be interesting to see how we get on against City. I think that. But for me, I'm with you, Mark. I think Botman's done enough to tell Eddie Howe that he deserves a shot against City. I mean, that's a total different animal altogether. We're going to be taking on arguably the best team in Europe. They're starting to find their rhythm a little bit. Haaland looked good in the first game. They battered Bournemouth at the weekend. Haaland didn't even get on the goal scoring sheet. I think he had 2 touches. One was an assist or something like that in the second half. But, Grealish was looking good as well. Gundogan, they're all looking good. So I just think it's a real concern when they come to town. But all we can do is keep our shape. And you're right, Mark, potentially they might go 3 at the back with 2 wing backs and kind of flood the back, and try and stop City battering and kind of hit them on the break, so to speak. But, just to touch a little bit on ASM, I know we'll get more of this on Wednesday, but ASM, again, had one of his really, really poor games. I think what worries me about ASM, certainly in a game like that where you're against a team that's pressing, he's just got absolutely no awareness whatsoever. There was one standout moment for me was when I think they had a corner and I think somebody headed it away and it came towards ASM and he tried to drop his fucking shoulder and take it on the spin. And then I think I can't remember who it was. It was the Solly March or somebody just nicked the ball off him. And then Brighton had a chance. And I was screaming, thinking, what the fuck are you playing at? Like, this is a high pressing side. It's a high pressing side. What are you playing at, doing that? In a game like that, it was absolutely mental, mate. I just couldn't get my head around it.
It's one of those for ASM. I mean, he gave the ball away a lot. I think it was 17 times he gave the ball away, which is the most. And you expect that from him in the game. He's always the highest, and it's the way he plays. But you needed some more awareness from him when in that type of game. It's tight because it's one mistake. Is the difference at that point? It's just going to be him giving the ball away on the edge of the box like that creates the opportunity for the goal. But fortunately for Newcastle, it didn't come, but it could very well have done.
Yeah, he did it like a pub player, Stu. He really pissed. You look like that kind of guy who's always doing stupid step overs in the Sunday League, and you're screaming at him, and you're hungover, and he's putting you under pressure all the time. I'm not sure whose Nokia was going off, Ash, to be honest with you. I moved my phone there in case it was mine. I was just looking at the bench of the weekend there to try and see whether we could talk about that in a minute, but I can't tell if it was my phone or Mark's phone going off there, but somebody's phone was definitely going off. So I've moved mine out of the way, mate. So if it was me, apologies for that. But yeah, I just think, it was a scruffy game. I think that we could have potentially nicked the 3 points. There was another bit in that game as well, which I know we'll cover again on Wednesday, but it pissed me off. And just to finish, I suppose, in the game a bit, maybe before we move on to the other elements, that if that's a high foot from Callum Wilson, I'm fucking Shakira, man. That was an absolute piss take. Like, what is the referee doing blowing the whistle for something like that? I mean, get fucked, mate. Honestly, what are you playing at?
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, it's a high foot. It wasn't dangerous. He was completely in control of the ball. He was nowhere near the defender's head. Was it Lewis Dunk?
Yeah, he was about a foot away or something, wasn't he? Like, it was ridiculous.
There was plenty of space. It was awful. I do think that. I mean, I know it went in. I do think had he been allowed to carry on, I just think it would have been an easy take for the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper. It
would have been. He stopped, didn't he? He stopped in the play. The keeper. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But who's to say that the play didn't evolve from that and it didn't get passed to the side of something that would then carry on and make it into a goal? It was an awful decision, and it was just one of those where the referees completely erred on the side of caution when there was no caution needed.
Yeah. Well, I think they said on Match of the Day, I mean, I'm with you, Ash, it was a fucking joke. How else is he meant to control it? It's good centre-forward play, in my opinion. It's quick feet, it's quick thinking, good centre-forward play. I think the Match of the Day even said as well, because he blew the whistle, Mark, he made the decision before they even thought about looking at VAR to see whether that should have stood or not. I get what you're saying, the keeper stopped dead, and I think that they couldn't have let the goal stand because of that, really. But the ref blew the whistle so quickly, they just ruined that whole decision-making process there as I suppose the team and the attacking ascendancy, really. If that's what referees are going to do now, what are you supposed to do as a centre forward? Are you supposed to go for your head with your head and risk a concussion injury, or are you supposed to use your skill and your brain to flick it over somebody's head and go? Like, where do you draw the line here?
Well, that was just very good play from Wilson. There was no reason to have gone for it with his head. And the ref, I think you've got far as a referee. Give yourself a second, allow the play, and then go. Actually, if it goes in, and it gets reviewed. And if after review you think it's a free kick, fine. I'm okay with that. But it's such a quick decision in such an environment. And it's all about whatever happened. I guess whatever happened to giving the benefit of the doubt to the attacking side. And I know they talk about that with offsides and stuff, but Jesus Christ, man, just let a play develop. And then if you want to go back, if it goes in the net, review it. But there was no other way that Wilson was going to control that ball. And it was a brilliant bit of centre forward play to pull that out of the air. And it was just ruined by the referee. How many times have we said that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he had a real battle with Dunk as well, did Wilson all game. I thought that was quite a good battle between them two. But I quite like Dunk. I think he's quite underrated by a lot of people. Manchester United could do a lot worse than sign the centre-half like Dunk. No fucking nonsense. Get rid of the ball instead of, bloody Warwick Davis from Willow at the back of the fucking sign in the summer.
Jesus, that Man U defence is just abysmal, isn't it? What is going on with them?
It's a golf course, that thing, man. It's fucking horrendous, isn't it?
Wow.
Yeah, good job on our Man United podcast. We probably would have set the record for swearing by now. Stu said Almiron's smile gets wider and wider with every bad decision he makes. He's a little bit like that Instagram filter with a face like that. Every time I see him smiling, bless him, is Mickey. We've got a great comment from Jimmy Helos pulling out the one-liners. He's after my job. I drop ASM quicker than a knackered lift. He's about as consistent as Kerry Katsona's morning after kill. That's fucking superb, Jimmy. I love that. Keep them coming, mate. Keep them coming. Ash is saying you don't flag for offside until the following game these days. So why are the refs so keen to? I don't know what that referee was doing, mate. I think I've never seen a ref so whistle happy. Certainly in the first half, he was blowing for everything, Mark. Wasn't he? It was pissing me right off, that ref.
Well, the point is that the referees are supposed to be letting a little bit more go these days, and not for the little bits of contact, allowing them to flow. We saw some of that tonight in the Liverpool game where there was some proper contact in sort of challenges that would have been blown up straight away last season, but has been allowed to play where there's absolutely no need for a free kick. But you're right. He whistle happy. It's just nothing really was allowed to go, and that was just the one that tipped over, wasn't it? It was just it was too quick. Like I say, allow the play to go on. If you then can come back and change your mind, fine. I don't mind that. But at that heat of the moment, you cannot be absolutely sure that Wilson's foot was a danger to a player around him. Because on review, it was nowhere near. So you cannot take that decision that quickly.
Yeah, no, that was really poor. It did put a real sour note in the game. But I mean, to be fair, as we said, Brighton played us off the park. In all fairness, they deserved. Anyone deserved 3 points. It was probably Brighton. In all fairness, and we don't yet know how good they're going to be. They beat Man United, but Whitley Bay under-9s could beat Man United at the minute. So you don't know how good Brighton's going to be. So we don't know how good that point is, but. Brighton did look all right, and it's the same old story with them. No centre forward, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think Welbeck played well. When you say they played off the park, I don't think they did. I think second half, certainly. First half was very, very even. Second half...
What I mean is they made better use of the ball than we did. Is probably what I mean. Yeah,
they created chances for a start. I mean, Newcastle had 4 shots, 1 on target.
They had 13. Was it 13? I think they said. Yeah.
So
7 on target.
It's pretty much one way traffic in that regard. There's just no out for Newcastle. Just didn't have the ability to make any sort of any chances at all. It was really limited, and by the way that Brighton is set up.
Yeah, and I'm going to get the phone out again, so apologies the Nokia sign goes up again, but it does lead us quite well into the next section we want to talk about, mate, which was the squad depth. We spoke about this during the game as well. We were messaging each other. We all know about transfers, and I think we've got some comments about transfers. We're going to have a little bit of a transfer roundup in a second as well. But you look at that bench, and again, this screams problem for me. And I'm not criticising the owners because you're not allowed to do that now. It's you get 10 years in prison as a Newcastle fan if you criticise the owners in any way, shape, or form, especially on Twitter. But the bench, you got Dubravka's a backup goalkeeper, fair enough, not a bad option. Paul Dummett, Jamal Lascelles, Matt Ritchie, Manquillo, Chris Wood, Jacob Murphy, Elliot Anderson, who didn't get a sniff, and Sean Longstaff. That is not a great bench. There's no game changers on that bench whatsoever when you're in a game like that, Mark, is there? That's a worry, that.
Anderson was the only one. I mean, there's only one.
And why didn't he give him a sniff? That was the only bit that pissed me off about the game.
You're not going to bring Wood in. I mean, Chris Wood is good for one thing and one thing only, and that's almost as the battering ram up front, isn't he?
Yeah, getting in the way.
You're in a type of game where you're up against Webster and Dunk and Veltman, where you're not going to be able to play that game. If you start slinging balls into the box for Chris Wood, they're going to get headed away by at least Webster or Dunk at that point. So yeah, he's almost pointless in that regard. So you have to have some sort of attacking threat from elsewhere, and you're not going to get that from anybody but Elliot Anderson. And it just shows that there is so little at the club outside of the first team now, where if things don't go right, you absolutely need somebody coming in to change it, because you can't make those quick decisions on the day. You go, well, I'm going to change things up, because there's no way to actually do it.
No, absolutely. I agree with that comment from Kenk there, saying our defence and goalkeeper prove the Premier League standards. The midfield's okay, apart from Willock. Front three is okay. Both wingers need to be transferred. ASM can be fantastic off the bench, as could Miggy as well. I just think that I think Ash is probably saying what I'm going to say as well here. There wasn't a single player on that bench who could have influenced the outcome in a positive way. And with only John Joe, Target, and Fraser missing, that's not a good sign. He's totally right, Mark. I think that, we've all talked about, we're going to talk about transfer updates in a minute, but we've all talked about some of the frustrations in that attacking third. The club seemed to put all their eggs in the Ekitike basket, and then that tipped over. And just seemed to set us on a bit of a spiral, really, in terms of trying to get somebody else in. If we had somebody on that bench, I'm just going to chuck a couple of names out there. If we had a Callum Hudson-Odoi, if we had a Brozier, if we had a was it Ramos from Benfica, if we, even Emmanuel Dennis, who's just gone to Forest, so we'd had a player like that on that bench at the weekend, that could have brought somebody on with fresh impetus who could have got a bit of space and maybe just nicked that 1-0. Would you agree with that, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, you go to some of the other Premier League games and the changes that you can make to change a game. The Villa-Everton game, when Onana came on for them, totally changed the way that Everton played.
What's his name?
They were... I'm not saying
I'm only joking.
But he totally changed the game. You don't have anybody to be able to do that yet. And if you, I seriously think Newcastle have to now go out and pick up at least 2, if not
2 or 3. Yeah, I agree.
If you can maybe bring in a loan from the Premier League in the likes of maybe Callum Hudson-Odoi or Pulisic, plus another in that regard, and maybe it's a loan deal or something from abroad like Ramos. I think that's the most likely. You need depth. You need the ability to change a game, and with the bench the way that it is, and with the squad the way that it is, that's you look at that comment before with only Shelvey, Target, and Fraser missing. Even with those 3 there, it doesn't give you an awful lot of difference to what's already available on the field.
Yeah, I think we spoke at length about the financial implications and FFP and everything else. Swiss Ramble was out again on Twitter with a brilliant thread about Chelsea. If anyone's read that one, it was absolutely fantastic. Just talking about how Chelsea were able to offset the losses mainly by player sales. To be honest with you, when you have assets you can sell, which makes me think. the reason Amanda Staveley and Merdad were at Chelsea is because there's some real quality there that are obviously available for signing. So I think they're obviously gone down there for a reason. You just hit a couple of names there, Mark. Pulisic, Callum Hudson-Odoi, even Conor Gallagher has been mentioned. I mean, this is kind of this is kind of taking us into the transfer talk section. Anyway, we might as well get stuck into that as well. So yeah, I mean, I think that there is quality in that Chelsea squad, and they have to sell players because they've bought a lot of players in on big wages as well. Decent transfer fees. Raheem Sterling, Koulibaly. There's a couple of others as well, isn't there? That they've brought in on some real good fees and wages. They're trying to sign Frankie de Jong. That probably will go through because, I mean, playing at Barcelona right now for that poor kid, he's getting abuse going to training just because they haven't fucking paid him, which is just batshit crazy.
It's the Barca fans that are sort of abusing him online by saying, if you really love the club,
and in the ground on his way to the ground,
the pay cut. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. But they're the ones that agreed to this. They're the ones that put themselves in this position. He's done absolutely nothing wrong.
Yeah,
it's just shocking. But if they're able to put him in, that would be a good one, considering how much time Man United have put into looking at him as well. That would be a big kick for them.
Honestly, Manchester United is, they could make a comedy about that. If they did a documentary behind the scenes of Manchester United, Jesus Christ, it would be the funniest thing you've ever seen. It'd be a bit like Del Boy and Rodders trying to, run a decorating business or something. It'd be very, very similar. There'd be a few chandelier scenes smashing, I think. But yeah, Keng's back in the comments saying, if 3 new players are coming in, 3 existing players, Willock, ASM go to the bench. Yeah, you're right, mate. The bench would look a hell of a lot better. And I agree with you, Stu. I think Pulisic could fill in through the middle too. I think you're right. He's got goals in him. And I don't see any reason why he couldn't do that. I mean, I saw something online, Mark, that I think was on Twitter, where they said that Pulisic is open to the move as well, which is great because you want a player who wants to play for the club. I mean, people can say, oh yeah, don't fall in love with a lone player, Loic Remies and all these other guys. But look at Matty Target. He came on loan last season, had a great half of the season, and he wanted to come back. He said from the minute he came in, he felt like he was part of the squad. I've got no doubt that a Pulisic or Conor Gallagher or Callum Hudson-Odoi would feel the same way if they came on loan here. That they'd feel part of that squad, and even just looking at those 3 players in isolation. I'll come back to Gallagher in a minute, but if you've got Hudson-Odoi or Pulisic, that covers that other kind of wing side that we're so short on at the moment, doesn't it? And it gives you real quality and real proven quality as well in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, it is we've touched on it so many times now. That right hand side is a key area now because Miggy, bless him, he works so hard and he does everything with the comment before about everything. He has a smile on his face constantly, regardless of what goes on, and he does put an awful lot of yardage in. If you look at his average position at times on Saturday, he was behind the 3 midfielders because he was tracking back, he was running, he was pushed further and further back by the way that Brighton were playing, and he worked so hard, but he does give you some really poor quality going forward. I went back and had a look at the Forest game again, and it was the number of times that the ball arrived and he could have used his right foot, and it's just, I mean, even just a swinger, just hit it. There were the 2 or 3 moments where he just had the opportunity to put a ball in with his right foot or shoot or slide in with his right foot, and he just won't do it. And you cannot carry somebody like that. As hard-working as he is, you have to have somebody that's willing to just use either foot regardless. And somebody like Pulisic or Callum Hudson-Odoi, like down that side, would just give you so much more quality now.
Yeah, it's decision making and it's keeping composure in key areas. I mean, we made a joke on Evermore Wednesday that I'll probably learn to play the guitar before Miggy uses his right foot, so that deal could still probably be on. I think I could be playing Stairway to Heaven before Miggy takes a shot with his right foot. We've got some other comments coming in. We've got is that Tony 10 Barros? Good to see you, mate. You all need Gallagher bad, absolutely. And he says that Gonzalo Ramos will boost you all up. Absolutely, mate. You're right, mate. I think both of those players would be great assets to us. So yeah, I mean, one thing's for sure, Mark. I mean, just looking at the squad and the balance we're talking about, the squad depth and transfers here kind of intertwined. we have had some frustrations. I don't want to be too critical of the owners, and I don't want to have a moan about it, but we've got 2.5 weeks left of this this window. Is about 2.5 weeks, and about that. We need to make some moves sharpish here, because we've played two very different teams there, and we're about to play a very, very different team. So it's a real test as to where the side is. Against Forest, I think if we had a little bit more quality, it could have been 4 or 5-0, to be honest with you. Miggy grafted his arse off. He did really well. I thought Miggy worked quite hard at the weekend as well, to be fair. But again, it's that end product. It's that bit of composure when you need it. It's that little bit of just that little bit of sense, that little bit of smartness in the player that can go, actually, you know what? I'm going to drag it back. I'm going to square it. I'm going to shoot, whatever. Miggy just can't do that. He's just so excited about everything. He has a rush of blood to the head type thing, like a dog chasing a ball. But if you'd had those bits of quality in those two games, could have been slightly different. More goals in the first game, maybe a win in the second game. The third game is very, very different, because we're going to be playing arguably the best team in Europe. And I just think that, you could be on your game all game, and you could have 2 or 3 of these extra players, and we could still get pumped 4-0. So it's a very difficult game to gauge it on against City. But I think once City is done, I think we need to have those 2 or 3 players in, Mark. Do you agree? Just to balance this side out, mate?
Absolutely, of course. I mean, you want them in as quickly as possible, whoever they're going to be that comes in, because you need to develop. Let's not forget, you've got Liverpool coming up as well. So the 2 of the next 3. Who's the other one? Is it West Ham?
I think it
West
is.
Ham the other one, or Wolves?
That can't be my phone, because my phone's over there. Is that your phone?
I've just moved mine. It might be mine now. I'm just trying to look up who the fixers are.
The phones are going off.
You've had 2 where you look at, you've got points out of them, which is good. But you now need to be able to change things up when things, aren't quite going so well. You need to be able to do things a little bit differently, and you need those players in quickly.
Yeah, so we've got we've got the City game, then we've got the Tranmere Cup game. I don't want to see Wilson playing in that game. I don't want him getting injured in that game. I really don't. Then we've got Wolves away. That could be 3 points, to be fair. We've got Liverpool at Anfield, then we've got Palace and West Ham. September's a bit of a better month, actually. We've got Palace at home, West Ham away, Bournemouth at home to finish up September. So that's not too bad, that. That's quite a decent month of fixtures. We could get some points on the board there.
West Ham created an awful lot of chances yesterday against Forest. I think Forest were very lucky, really, to come away with a win in that one. Bournemouth, I hate to say it, for a lot of teams, they're going to be cannon fodder, really, this season.
I agree.
They've come into this, and they're a good club. They're just tiny at the moment. They can't really grow out of what they are, and
can't compete, mate. Yeah,
they showed that they had the battle first game of the season, but they were just outclassed. And City will do that to many teams, but I just think that there are an awful lot of teams that will do that to them this season. Wolves, I guess it's one of those. It depends on which Wolves turns up. Liverpool have been rocky to start the season, so even going to Anfield isn't. It's not going to be out of the realms of possibility to come out with a result from that. They're going to be missing Nunes now, as we said, for his headbutt tonight on them.
And we might have 1 or 2 in by then as well, potentially.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And who's the other one that you said?
It's Palace at St James's.
Palace showed tonight as well. They're no mugs. They went to Anfield with
decent Palace,
and they've done very, very well. And is Zaha still there? He's still their main threat, but he still finds space. No matter who he's playing against, he still manages to find the space to exploit. So they're not easy games. None of them are really in the Premier League. But you certainly want to get City and Liverpool out of the way, and then you can be a little bit more competitive, I think, at that point. But you're right. You need those players coming in.
Absolutely. I just wish we were playing Manchester United every week. That would be great fun. That. We got Stu in the comments saying, I don't think Pulisic will be that bothered about not living in London either. I agree with you, mate. He seems like quite a grounded lad. We spoke about Pulisic, obviously, in the Room Hazard videos and obviously on the podcast before as well. Not only is he a very good player, but I think we're run by very clever business people now, and I think that from a commercial element as well, I think signing Pulisic is a great idea in terms of the commercial element over in America and the shirt sales, alone. So I think that would be really, really good. Ash has dropped in with a comment here as well. I spoke about this earlier on Twitter. I got a little bit of stick for it. So why are we bidding for João Pedro? Are we really that far down the list now? We must be on the back page of that notebook. I'm not massively keen on this bid, Mark. I know some people have said, he's actually a really good player and stuff. But what's your opinion on João Pedro, mate? Do you think he's a decent player or not?
We haven't seen an awful lot of the best of him, I don't think, and he's still young, isn't he? He's relatively, is he 20? So he's still finding his way. He kind of fits that mould that Newcastle have been looking at anyway. Young strikers, young forwards to come in and give something play as a backup. So I kind of get the reasoning for going for somebody like that, but he's not really shown anything that excites me. He's done a little bit, but he's not done an awful lot that would go, yes, that's the signing that we need. It's just
that's a fair comment.
That's
a fair comment, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. He certainly will give you a lot more movement than Chris would.
Absolutely. I think we could sign Pedro as in Peter Beardsley now, and he'd be fucking better than Chris would. He's about what is Beardo now? He's a fair old ages Beard already. We've got another comment coming from Keck there. João Pedro looks like he will sign. Hudson-Odoi loan highly likely, and lastly Pulisic or Paqueta. Asking price of Pulisic, I don't know. His wages around 150 grand a week, and Paqueta, I'd go for Paqueta. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, the Paqueta one's gone a little bit quiet, Mark, hasn't it? He's been linked all summer, and we've said this numerous times. I don't know whether it's just because he's mates with Bruno, or whether it's because he was in the quayside and and having a nice walk under the bridges and everything else with his missus. We don't know how much of that is true and how much of that is just fanfare and how much we wish Paqueta to come. But there's no question Paqueta would give you some kind of quality. I think. Going back to what was said there about ASM and Miggy, ASM and Miggy are, people get very protective of a pair of them on Twitter in particular. But let's be honest with you, when ASM's brilliant, he's brilliant. But how many times is he really brilliant? Let's be honest. You need a player who's more consistent than that. And you need a player who's cleverer than Miggy in terms of decision making. And in this market right now, there is quality players around. Paqueta's one of them. Hudson-Odoi would be another. Madison, if that deal could happen. These are three players alone that are much, much better players than Miggy and ASM. They're huge upgrades, So to me, it tells what you think, Mark. But if you can get one or two of those guys in, I think the comment before was right. Miggy and ASM go on the bench. There was a talk about people accepting apparently the club would accept a bid of 40 million for Miggy for ASM. I'm not sure who's going to pay that for ASM, mate. But do you think he's surplus to requirements under Ready or not? Or do you think it's still up in the air a bit?
I think there's a little bit of it still up in the air because I'm not sure he's going to play regardless because
he's the best option that we have right now. So yeah,
he's the most likely to create something out of nothing. But do you trust him? That would be my point. And Eddie Howe's been very much about who he can trust to do jobs on the field. Can you trust ASM? I love watching him play. Don't get me wrong, but he doesn't give you. If he's not completely on song and he's a 9 out of 10, he's a 4 or 5 because he doesn't do anything else.
He's never in the middle, is he? He's never in a grey area, and he never just picks up the ball and hits a killer pass. He's been shit all game, hits a killer pass and wins it for you. He has to be great all game, or he just does nothing.
Yeah, at least with Miggy, if he has a shocker, he's going to work his absolute socks off. He's going to run backwards and forwards all day long. He's going to graft. ASM doesn't, and you become. We said this last season. He's a passenger, and you can't carry him for too long, and especially in big games where you need him to perform. If he's not, you're better off just taking him off. And it's shocking. Yeah. I absolutely love watching him play. He's fantastic. He gets the crowd on their feet. But it doesn't happen often enough.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Ash. Love ASM as a player. He's a free spirit, isn't he? But he says he thinks he needs to go. Something just isn't right since Howe came in. He's not disciplined enough to play in Howe's way. I agree with that. I mean, Bruce kind of gave him the license, and the whole tactic was just give the ball to Alan. Was basically it. Whereas he's surrounded by players now who are better technically and tactically than under Bruce. You've got Trippier at the back, Matty Target, Dan Burn. You've got Bruno in the midfield. these are good players that are saying, right, give it to me and make your run, or square out on the edge of the box. I'm making a run to come in. I mean, there's a lot of times people say he provided for Wilson towards the end of the season, and he did, to be fair. But he doesn't do it a lot. You watch him when he comes inside, and he always cuts inside. He tries to do a couple little tricks, and he plays the ball out. He just doesn't quite time the running right for his teammates. And I just think, he must be frustrating as fuck to play with as a player. Do you know what I mean? I love that. Jimmy, you're on fire, mate. Honestly, we'll have to get you on and just have a Jimmy one-liner podcast episode. We'll just sit back and let you do it, mate. You are putting me to shame, my friend. I'm loving it. But yeah, I just think, I mean, I'm definitely with Ash, mate. I mean, people get really defensive about ASM, but I mean, I think there's a comment there from Brandon. I get your take on this, Mark, as well. Who's someone been linked to the club? He said he'd like to see us get Hudson-Odoi or Pulisic. I love both those players, but for me, hands down, if you can get him, it's James Maddison. I would happily see ASM go and Maddison come in as my new number 10. What's your take on that, Mark?
Tough to disagree with that one, because I just think Maddison he's sort of a cut above.
He is head and shoulders above.
Of those ones that are more likely, because I think that the most likely Leicester issue now is if Fofana goes. If Fofana goes, then I think their financial issues are nowhere near as bad, because I think they're going to be talking 70, 80 million or something for him. So it's then down to one of the others, and I think you're more likely to see Hudson-Odoi, Pulisic, Paqueta maybe, Ramos.
Yeah,
it's certainly right. One of those or two of those four. Yeah. And if João Pedro is one, then you bring him in as a forward player to give that sort of that help to Wilson, that ability to limit his minutes if absolutely needed. Then honestly, I think I'd go Pulisic. I think
it's hard to disagree with that. 23 years old, the potential as well.
Yes, he's had some injury worries, but he's still only 23. He gives you outcomes, and he does score goals. And he do you know what I mean? So I think in that regard, I would plump for him if you can bring in him. Maybe
in his country as well. Captain of his country. He's a leader. So
if you can, well, and that's key as well. It's that leadership thing. So if he can come in maybe on a loan deal to the end of the season with an option to buy. If he's no worries with his fitness, then you look great. Sign him up. I think he would be the one I got. I still love to kind of see Paqueta come and play in the Premier League. It's not all about just being Bruno's mate. I just think he's a good player. He's a very good player.
He's a brilliant footballer. You don't get in the Brazilian team as often as he does if you're not a good footballer.
No, he's no mug, is he? So, no. But I think for me, Pulisic is the one. I think if you can bring in a forward player as well. He comes in and just allows you. And one of the comments before is that you can play wide, you can play through the middle, you can play either side. He's just a very, very good footballer, and he will give you such a different dynamic to what there is there already. I'm struggling to get my words out tonight.
I was going to say, it's the heat, mate, and it's still hot even though it's fucking raining. Ash, just to answer your question quickly on that, mate, 100%. I would swap deal. ASM if that was an option. I'm not sure Brendan Rodgers would take him, but I definitely would swap him and Maddison every day of the week. I'd even drive him to Leicester for him. He could talk to me about Helios all the way down, and I would drive him down there. So Jimmy is saying definitely, lads, Maddison is mass consistent. Totally agree with that. Stu saying keep ASM for this season. Kenk is saying ASM can give us one good game out of 10. Every fan looking forward to the top 7, and how is it going to work out? Firstly, after new signings, he sits on the bench. And after Howe can use him as a right wing last half an hour. See, I don't think he would like being an impact player, ASM. I think he'd kick up fuck by being on the bench. But if the window shuts and we'll keep him. But so John's saying surely ASM faults can be coached out of him. He is a game changer. If that high level, I'll bring you in on this one, Mark, because there's a lot of similarities between him and Traore. I think ASM is better than Traore. I think you do as well. But nobody's been able to coach that out of Traore with his faults, have they?
No, and there are some players you simply can't coach their faults out of them. And I think he might be one of them. And
Ben Arthur was the same. Ben Arthur was similar, wasn't he? He had his faults.
And you had to accept them just as part of who he was. I think with ASM, And you look at the other players that Eddie Howe has changed in the last nearly a year, and the difference he's made to the likes of Joe Linton, that he's come in and changed. Kraft was another one that he came in and totally transformed everybody's view of him just with the way that he played. There's been no transition of ASM. There's been no sign in nearly a year that he can change the way that he plays, that he changes attitude. He'll track back once every couple of games, and you think, "Ooh, maybe this is the turning point," and then it disappears again for a couple of games. You just think, "Well, where's the line?" I think that we go back to that word trust. If he's not showing those signs, and you start to lose trust in him in that position, being able to be part of the team rather than being just the maverick that he is, it's really difficult. And at some point, I think it's going to be a case of move him on and bring in players that will give you consistent 7 or 8 out of 10 rather than a 9 or a 10 out of 10 once every 10 games or whatever it is.
Absolutely, yeah. You can't got a good swap deal idea there. I think many Newcastle fans would drive Chris Wood down to Watford. I'm not sure Watford would take him, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, we all said this about ASM, didn't we? All said that this is going to be the make or break season for him. And I know people say that quite often about players and it never happens. But I think this is definitely the make or break season for him. I think that Eddie Howe knows there's something in there, something special in there as a player. And with those players and being a good manager like Eddie Howe is, you've got to take the rough with the smooth of those types of players. That they are going to be a little bit undisciplined. They are going to be a little bit rogue, but they're going to do something to win you the game. So you kind of allow a little bit for that defect, so to speak, in the player. But you're right, Mark. ASM for me is disappearing in games, and he's disappearing in games that he should be standing out in as well, which is the worry. Like against Brighton. In all fairness, yes, Brighton are a well-drilled, well-organised side, but ASM should be wanting the ball, running at those players. I mean, Lampard, I don't think he was even on the pitch, was he? Did he come on as a sub?
He didn't come on till later on. So
yeah, they didn't have any pace at the back, really, did they? So
no, when you look at that, I mean, they've got Veltman that plays down that right hand side, who I think would shepherd quite well because he can play out further on the right hand side. Solly March played predominantly in Newcastle's half, I think, and is that sort of almost wing back that they play with. He didn't have to marshal, and he didn't have to track back and cover ASM for much of the game at all. And you never saw Saint-Maximin get the ball and really drive. And that's what he's best at. He's best at driving and committing players. And yes, he has the fancy flicks and what have you, but he commits players towards him and allows the others to find space. It's what he does best. He just couldn't do it. There was no point in the game on Saturday where you just thought he's got them on strings here. I'm not going to say he didn't look interested, but he does drift out of games like that. If he doesn't start doing it, he does just disappear. That's
a fair comment by Jimmy there. People saying this patter about him, getting better. He's 25 years old. He should be in his prime. Shithouse. I do love that. I do condone the phrase shithouse, Jimmy. I must admit. I like anytime somebody says that. But you're right. Sorry, Mark. You were going to say that.
Yeah, just that exact point. There has to be a line, and you go, well, where do you say you could be saying that he could learn this until he's 32, and then it's far too late. I just think there's got to come a point where he's too much of a one-off. Almost like a one game out of so many. He has to be consistent if he's going to play in this Eddie Howe side, and I'm just not sure you can trust him to play constantly.
Yeah, I think Ash was saying there that he was very quiet against Forest. I don't think he was probably as good as he could have been, as Mark says there. He did cause a bit of chaos, but he maybe didn't run as many players as he could have done. But I think the biggest concern, as we kind of pointed out earlier on, Mark, is I would have hooked him a lot sooner than Eddie Howe did, in all fairness, because he was stinking out the Amex. But when you hook him and you bring on Jacob Murphy to replace him, that there in itself is the big problem, isn't it? That people have said before, you bring in Hudson-Odoi, you bring in Pulisic, for example. Miggy and ASM have got to work their nuts off to get in the side, and if they're on one side or the other side, if you brought both those players in, for me, ASM and Miggy aren't anywhere near the starting 11. You got Pulisic and Callum Hudson-Odoi either side of Callum Wilson. That's my front three. I'm sure it'll be yours too, Mark. But
yeah,
bringing in that competition gets the best out of players. It makes them play better. It makes them step up their game. So it'd be interesting if we were to bring at least one of these players to see how Maxi would do. Do you think he would suddenly step up, mate, or do you think he would? Do you think he would just be a little bit sulky? Or
I think he might go that way. I genuinely think he might be one that he's the exception to the competition breeds better performances. I think he might sulk because he's no longer guaranteed to start. It's
me too, Stu. Me too. Sorry, but you said he'll throw his toys out of pram because he'll think he's been ousted out of the side. Yeah,
I do, but I think that if that does happen, I think that will be the start of him leaving the club. I just think once he's no longer a starter, yes, I think he'd be a brilliant impact player. But so long as he comes on for 20 minutes and puts in that 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 effort, and I'm not sure, even at that point, I'm not even sure that you'd get that out of him.
I actually think you get more out of Anderson. I think you get more out of Anderson if you brought him on for the last 10, 15 minutes. I think he would try more. It does
surprise me that he's not been used yet, because he does just give something, and I've used this phrase 1,000 times, it does just give you something a little bit different that Newcastle just don't have on the bench at the moment. And he can play in those wider positions, and he can play through them. He's a little bit more forward thinking than every other player that's on that bench.
I think if we get those three in, I could see Anderson going to a championship club on loan for the season. I think if we get three of those players, and say if we were to get Pulisic, Hudson-Odoi a permanent deal, or Conor Gallagher on a permanent deal, and maybe João Pedro, you could maybe then see Anderson possibly moving out on loan. But there is talk about Matty going out on loan. Apparently Eddie Howe wants Matty to go out on loan, not on a permanent deal, because he wants him to try and improve. So do you think Eddie Howe's still got plans for Matty Longstaff, mate? Just briefly before we move on to the last section.
But he's going to have to make those quickly, isn't he? Because he last year
because he's contract,
so he's going to have to go and show something special. With Anderson, I think it's a case of, because if Shelby was fit, I think he would go out on loan. But I think with Shelby being out for so long, 3 months, I think you have to keep him around because he can fill in one of those central positions. So I don't think he'll move anywhere unless you were to bring in another central midfielder.
Like Conor Gallagher or
was somebody that was to come in. Yes, I think then he'll move out on loan. But if that doesn't happen, you're just talking about a striker, a wide player, something like that, then I think he stays.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Well, we're going to finish it up with a little bit of fun as well. Nick Pope, that's all I need to say is Nick Pope, the man who took over Twitter thanks to Toon Polls, which was absolutely superb. Obviously, Toon Polls hijacked the Burger King poll, if anyone hadn't seen it. And I think they said, what was better? I can't remember what the options were. Was it cheese and tomato or something, or cheese or tomato? And Toon Polls just said Nick Pope. Then all of a sudden, every corporate account going just started tweeting Nick Pope, Nick Pope, Nick Pope, and it was just a thing of beauty, mate, wasn't it? In the end,
it was. It was funny watching some of the football, the teams getting involved in it as well. And
yes,
I think as others said, there were others that tried to then just steer it their own way a little bit.
Yeah, so a little bit of shithousery.
To be a little bit shitting. I mean, they've got
Brentford the same. Brentford were shithouses as well. They did that. They put a picture of them conceding a goal, didn't they? So that was a bit shit.
I think that is a little bit of fun in that regard, but it's just it was brilliant. It was fun. I mean, I cottoned onto this so late, and I'm looking and go, why the heck is Nick? I thought, is he injured? Is he? I know they've been talking about him having a slight knock. I thought, what's he done? Is something happened to him? And then it was just going through, oh right, it's Burger King. And I think did Burger King say something, or somebody say that they would give Toon Polls?
They did. It was Matty D's. It
was a breakfast, wasn't it?
That was it. Leroy's got to say it was gherkin or tomato or Nick Pope. That's what it was. But yeah, Mackie D said they'd give Toon Polls a free breakfast. I think it would be interesting if Toon Polls was watching, or if someone could tag him on Twitter to the video. And I want to know if he got his free breakfast. I hope they followed through on that. But it was great crack. And I'm not even sure Nick Pope even knew what the fuck was going on. He probably came in the dressing room before a game and thought, what the hell's going on? My phone's blowing up.
I'm sure at some point he tweeted as well. So
he did tweet Nick Pope.
It was great fun. I mean, this is this is the good side of social media, isn't it? When things like this happen, you just think, yeah, this is what it was designed to do. It was designed to kind of bring everybody into one point and just have a bit of fun with it. It wasn't, you see some of the shit that goes on in there, and it's dreadful at times. So something like this, it just goes, yeah, this is why we like it. This is why we get involved in it. So it was great fun.
It just makes you smile. And obviously, Brighton did tweet Nick Pope after the game. And just a little bit about Nick as the resident keeper for the Evermore channel, mate. I thought he was brilliant against Brighton. Pulled off some good saves, especially the header from Lallana. And for me, mate, if he keeps playing the way he's playing and it pulls off saves like that, I think he's England number one for me, mate. But maybe I'm being biased.
Maybe. No, he's definitely... Yeah, he's
him and Ramsdale, possibly a little bit between them two.
Maybe I still on the Nick Pope bus at that point. I still think he should have been England's number one anyway. I think he's a far better goalkeeper than Pickford. He's what's that?
I did see that. Yeah, they offered him free tickets, and he said World Cup final did 2 polls.
Well played.
That was quite well good. Played. Very well played.
But no, it was. I suppose ironic after Nick Pope Day on Friday, he goes out and has a blinder on Saturday. It was just, but yeah, he absolutely for me should be England's number one, and so long as he's playing as well as he is, then there's absolutely no reason why he shouldn't be the number one when it comes around to Qatar in November, because I just think that there's no other England goalkeeper that's on that level at the moment.
No, I think he showed already, even in the couple of games he's played, 2 very different games. I think Eddie Howe made reference to that. But decent with his feet, distribution's good. There was a few times that Botman passed the ball back to him, first time passes back. He took a touch really well. He picked his pass really well, looking for Callum Wilson, aiming out wide. His reaction as well for a big lad. He gets down quick. He throws a hand out quick. He's quickly get back up on his feet, which is one thing that used to wind you up about keepers. No end mark, wasn't when they went down. They're too slow to get back up. You look at the way that De Gea had a mare the weekend. Jimmy's on the same page as you, mate. De Gea's meant to be the best keeper in the world. And Nick, if he's the best keeper in the world, what the hell's Nick Pope, mate? You know what I mean? So I'm very impressed with what he's done so far. And I can't see Dubravka getting back in. He keeps playing the way he's playing. And I still wonder about Dubravka. I still wonder whether he's going to go this window, mate. And do you think that'll happen? I honestly think Dubravka will be gone by the end of the window, mate.
I think because you've got the other two, you've still got Darlow, haven't you? You've still got Gillespie hanging around us. It does seem a bit odd to then keep Dubravka around. You're not expecting anything to happen, and in those two do serve as good backups that hopefully aren't needed. So we talked about this with the Madison deal. If you can use him as a make weight for a deal as well, bring the price down a little bit by using him in some sort of part exchange, then that's ideal. And he's a good goalkeeper in his own right. But I mean, Pope is just he's head and shoulders the best goalkeeper at the club, and he's shown that. And Eddie Howe was right. He's had 2 very, very different games. First game was all about his composure in managing his box and being commanding. The second one was all about his shot stopping ability, which nobody had any doubt of at all. But that save from Lallana, the one a little bit later on from, was it Pascal Gross?
No, he saved his feet, I think, didn't he? Yeah.
They're exceptional saves, and I think he ended up with 5 or 6 saves in total, and he had a very, very good game, and it really is the reason him and Trippier's goal line clearance are the reason that Newcastle came away with a point in the end.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a good shout, Leroy. I don't really want Dubravka to go either, but, as Mark rightly says there, if we can use him as a make weight, in a deal like a Madison deal, if that was the breaking point, you'd be mad not to, because, Darlow is a decent number 2. Gillespie's still kicking around, you know what I mean? So why not, if that's something that we can do. But yeah, I mean, it's I think Nick Pope's in for a very different game coming up at the weekend. It'd be like the Alamo probably for him, but you never know. Sometimes keepers can win you games like that, Mark, can't they? When they're just getting peppered left, right, and centre, and they're pulling off save after save after save.
Wasn't it Darlow a couple of seasons ago had a game like that where he got absolutely
Spurs?
It was shots. Yeah, it was just shot after shot after shot, and he kept them out. So they can.
Tim Krul before him did that as well against Spurs. I remember that one. Yeah.
So it's it can happen, and he's going to have a tough time because there's so much attacking talent from that City side. It's just ridiculous. So,
but you might as well have a go. Like you might as well have a go against a team like that. You know, at St James's Park, as we said before, with that crowd, with war flags in attendance, you know, with the expectation and the atmosphere that's there, and the players feed off that. You know, then for me, why not fucking have a go? You know, Christ, why not? So Jimmy's back in the comments again. The chance of Dubravka getting in. I don't know, Jimmy. With these one-liners, I might just get you on to warm the crowd up, mate. You might be all right. Maggots in the comments. Man United fans at Old Trafford at the moment smashing the windows, saying they want Glazers out. There's a real irony in there, isn't it? If you want the Glazers out, you're smashing the windows. You probably do want the Glazers out. I don't know if that's what Maggot means there, but that's just an inadvertent bit of irony there, mate. But yeah, of course you want the Glazers out. You smash the fucking windows. Of course you do, mate. But I mean, yeah, I mean, God, they are in dire straits, man. Dire straits.
It's. Do you know what it is? They've had it so good for so long, and it really was being held together by
one
tape
man
at the end, wasn't it? And it would, yeah. I guess when you look at the end of it with Ferguson before he finally finished, it was. I mean, you could almost see it sort of starting to crumble at that point.
Yes, Maggot. Yeah, it was intentional. It was intentional. Good man. It's late, mate. We're hot.
It's but yeah, it's. I mean, they talk about the fact that the ground is crumbling and it's been neglected, and the only good thing was that they had decent play on the pitch, and that's gone completely. The whole club is a mess.
Everyone's caught them up as well, Mark. Everyone's caught them up with the development of the youth players. They used to have the monopoly of all the young players from London, and they've got Beckham and all this stuff. Whereas City are now, beating them for all the players. Chelsea have been doing it for years. Spurs, Arsenal, we're investing in our academy now as well. Liverpool, they haven't got the monopoly on players anymore.
This is a point now. At one point, if somebody had asked, which club do you want to go to as a young player, Manchester United, I want to go and play for Fergie. I want to go and play in that setup because I know there's a very real possibility of me being able to get through. Now you look at it and go, would you go to Manchester United? No.
Why would you
go anywhere near them? Because they're a complete mess. There's just no way you'd want to go into that circus, and it's just it must be. I'm going to draw short of saying I feel sorry for the fans, but you kind of have to a little bit because they've just
some
been Some of them are, and some of them, they were complete dickheads when they were the best in the land for so long. Some of them are really genuinely nice people, and I feel really sorry because it's not their fault. It's not their fault that the owners are complete idiots, and Newcastle have gone through having an ownership being an idiot as well. So it's just. And I know that there will be very few that will feel any sort of sympathy for them.
Well, you just took the words right out of my mouth, Ash, because if anyone hasn't seen, Rio Ferdinand has been getting a bit of a tasty tickling off Newcastle fans who've got long memories. That he said that we should feel privileged or happy that Ashley owned us, and if we didn't like it, why don't we raise the money and buy the club? And now he's the first to say that the Glazers need to get out and everything else. So it's double standards. Has any football taken more shit? Do you know what? It's just a point on Harry Maguire, Mark. We've been very critical of Harry Maguire, right? But some of the abuse, the personal abuse, is just ridiculous. The guy is getting death threats and all sorts of stuff. And people need to remember this is a game of football at the end of the day, right? Of course you want to win. Of course you're passionate about your club. But this is a bloke, with a family and everything else. And you've got to know where the line is, haven't you,
Oh, absolutely right. Personal attacks, no. If you want to, criticize the way that he plays, it's absolutely fair game. He's been dreadful, but you can't then go, the line of we've seen it where people with death threats and all sorts going on, and it's just that's far and above. It's utterly ridiculous and it's shocking. It seems to be a way of the world, though, unfortunately, and it's so wrong. It's just horrible to see that anybody. And you're right. He's got a family to look after, and it's just awful to see. But it's just. We've done the pieces on this before, and in a previous guys about fans being abusive and all this kind of shit that goes on online. It's so bad.
You've got to know where the line is at the end of the day. You know, a lot of people don't, unfortunately. But Maggot's saying that João Pedro, I've watched him. He's the best from Watford. Brilliant first half versus Sheffield United this season. Yeah, fair play, mate. Absolutely. So Jimmy's having a laugh at Man United fans. Man United, it's lush. I don't feel sorry for the fans. All mass glory seeking, vain, shallow Doyles. Fucking superb. And Ash is saying we live in a shit world. Unfortunately, mate, we do at times, you know, but there is some good people in it. So just hold on to that, mate, as well, you know, because they're not all full of shit bags, but there is some good guys in there. So keep looking for them. But that's us wrapped up for this week. So thank you so much, everybody in the comments. We really appreciate it. We're going to be back on Wednesday. Mark, I think you're jumping on Wednesday with me and the boys. Yeah, so we'll be going through a lot more stuff on the Evermore show at 7 o'clock on Wednesday. So make sure you tune in for that. If you haven't already, please click that like and subscribe button. We'd love to have you on board. I think we're about 70 short of 1,700 subscribers. So that is amazing. You wonderful people. Thank you so much for clicking that button. But just help us try and get to the 1,700 if you can. We'd love you forever. And we'll catch you next time on Evermore. Let's keep supporting that team with Newcastle United. And then we'll catch you later, lads.
See you guys.
And lasses. Bye-bye.